So hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video. And in today's video I'm going to be predicting the Mccaskill versus Price fight. And if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do need a like video, and let's get straight into it. So going into this fight, Mccaskill is 12-3-1 with 5 KOs and Price is 6-0 with 1 KO. This fight is for the IBO and WBA World Welterweight titles. Mccaskill's last fight was a draw versus Ryan, and Price's last fight was a win via points versus Bordeaux. Price is 29 and Mccaskill is 39. Price is a southpaw. Mccaskill's losses have come versus Cameron in 2022, Taylor in 2017 and Fisher in 2016. And to speak a bit more about what I've just been saying, like I mentioned, this is for the 2 belts in which Mccaskill currently holds. She still holds them, even off coming the draw versus Ryan, which was a very controversial draw, and obviously a lot of people didn't think that she deserved to get anything out of that fight. I mean, I think some of the commentators in the fight were even saying that they had a Ryan winning 10, well, about eight rounds out of the 10, and then giving 2 of them to Mccaskill. And obviously that maybe was a little bit harsh, but even then it was a clear, in my opinion, and I feel like a lot of people's opinion, win for Ryan. I do believe that Mccaskill isn't fighting as good as what she once was, but she's also fighting tougher tests than what she once was. I respect her for willingly going up against all these tough tests and now going to Price's home country of Wales for her homecoming type fight, where she's having her first world title, where she's going to be more motivated than ever to put on a display, because like I say, hometown world titles, wanting to bring these belts back to her home country. And so I have a lot of respect. Obviously this fight is in Wales, just in case you didn't know. Price, so she's coming off a valiant, easy, really points win versus Bordeaux. It was a comfortable performance. It was her just cruising through, to be completely honest, and outboxing a lot of the time. And she's not really had too much of a tough test yet. She has passed with flying colours all the fights in which she has had, but this is definitely a step up in opponent. And with Mccaskill, who obviously isn't on the best of form at the moment, she's still been fighting the best in the division. And when you look at Sandy Ryan in her last fight versus Terry Harper, you can see that she was a really, really dominant. And I mean, she managed to get Terry Harper out of there with relative amounts of ease. And so maybe that's credit to Mccaskill that she managed to go all the rounds with her and still be able to be boxing by the end and throwing her hands by the end. And so maybe that's credit to just Mccaskill's toughness, but I feel like the draw versus Mccaskill for Ryan definitely motivated her more, and she's become 10 times a fighter in my opinion since, so I don't know if you can look into that too much. Obviously Mccaskill was on a really good run of form before the Cameron fight. I mean, after the Taylor loss in 2017, she then went and picked up the belts at welter or super welter, and then she just went on a run for a while where she was looking really good, really dominant. She was boxing really well, and some of the fights in which she was winning very comfortably, and she was one of the more exciting fighters in the division. And it's just since that Cameron loss, she looked really out of place in that Cameron fight. She looked nothing like what she normally looked like, and obviously I believe it was a change in weight, which possibly could have played a factor. But there was other things that they were talking about, and I don't know. It's just since then she hasn't really looked the same, and arguably that could be her being past her peak. But she's now got this fight versus Price, and if she goes through and manages to get a win here, it would be a huge statement to make at 39 years of age, to retain her belts and win in somebody else's home country and in somebody else's back garden. I would have a lot of respect for that. To speak about them both as fighters, though, Price, she's got a good, strong jab. She's got very good boxing fundamentals. She's technically very sound. Of course, an Olympian herself. She has that amateur pedigree, that amateur background, that amateur skill and technique that normally comes with a lot of them fighters. She's controlled. She can fight on the front foot or the back foot. She's got good body work. She went to the body very nicely against Bordeaux, and she throws in bunches a lot of the time with good, sharp, accurate work. She is a mid-range type fighter majority of the time. I feel like she can fight in close, probably a bit better than what Mccaskill can, but I still believe she does a lot of her best work at mid-range, and I think Mccaskill quite often does a lot of her best work at mid-range as well, to an extent as of recent, and so I feel like this fight probably will be a mid-range type contest. She's got a good solid base, she's got nice balance, relatively nice footwork, she's got a good tight guard, she circles around the ring well, she controls the pace. I think Mccaskill also can control the pace quite well. I think Price likes to slow it down a lot of the time, but Mccaskill will slow it down to then bring it back up and speed it up. So it'll be intriguing to see what kind of pace this fight is fought at. She can outbox, she can be physical if needed as well. I feel like Mccaskill is somebody who always likes to be physical but isn't overly too strong, so it would be intriguing to see if she wants to be physical in this fight, Mccaskill. Price also fights her fight very well. She doesn't really get drawn into too much of a fight, too much of a firefight, even though a lot of the time I'm sure her opponents would much prefer that, and she has got that good technique. To speak negatives about her, obviously all the pressure's on her to live up to the hype of, Olympian, coming to her home country, bringing world titles back, and she's not got a huge following or anything like that, but she's going to be having a lot of eyes on her in Wales now, and this is her chance to become a champion and a star in Wales and to actually make her name known, and so all the pressure's going to be on her to do that. It's going to be intriguing to see how she deals with that, because it is realistically the first time she's had professional career-wise this much pressure on her. She's not overly fast. She sometimes doesn't plant her feet at the best of times. It's not anything too much of a problem, but it's just sometimes she doesn't always plant her feet at the best of times. She committing to attacks sometimes I feel like she doesn't commit to them quite as much. Possibly this leads to why she's possibly not getting as many stoppages in what she could do. She has to make sure to bring her hands back up. Like I say, her actual hand speed isn't anything too fast, and she's got to be making sure she doesn't just observe her work after throwing it. She's got to be returning these hands back to a tight guard, and of course this is a step up for her. She hasn't really got too good a head movement either. Her chin can be in the air whilst pulling away from attacks, and we've seen that quite often. And if she isn't returning that guard and pulling back with her chin in the air, she probably is going to get caught with shots. And I feel like she's a little bit tight in her movements. I don't feel like she's always the most loose in her work, and she doesn't have to be because she has good discipline. But I don't know. I'd like to see possibly a little bit more of a natural type movement in her head work and head movement and stuff like that. To speak about Mccaskill as a fighter, she works relatively well off a jab. I don't think it's quite as strong or as powerful or as dominating as that of Price is. She's aggressive. She definitely has that explosive, aggressive nature in her. She changes levels quite well. Of course, she's experienced. She's much more experienced at the high level, like I've been mentioning, than Price. She can apply pressure. She doesn't really respect her opponent. She's very confident when it comes into it, and she can control the pace, like I mentioned herself, with that explosive nature in which she does have to be able to come and throw bunches of shots, which a lot of the time she does, and she is willing to let her hands go a lot of the time, and she does still seem relatively well conditioned. I think the Cameron fight she didn't really seem like that, but in the Ryan fight she was still throwing into the later rounds, and so there were still relatively good conditioned aspects of her game. She's a front foot type fighter a lot of the time. I think she does her best work off the front foot, and she finds her range relatively well, I would say. Negatives about her, she's got a low guard a lot of the time, and she can be a little bit perhaps overconfident at times, and that overconfident style can lead to her getting frustrated if things aren't going her way, and she seemed to be getting frustrated against Ryan, and she was at times just flailing her arms around because things weren't going her way, and you don't really want that to be happening because it's literally just where your head's going, and I don't necessarily know where her mindset is at the moment. Like I say, that Cameron fight was just such a strange fight. Like I say, she's looked better since then in the Ryan fight, but it was just such a strange fight, and I just don't know where necessarily her head is and what version of Mccaskill we're going to see for this fight. I feel like she struggles to gain a rhythm at times. Her accuracy isn't anything crazy, and actually picking of her shots off her jab isn't anything too crazy. She sometimes just throws for the sake of it when she's in close, and it's not really the best of attributes to have. Obviously, question marks around her being past her best. She can kind of rush in with her attacks, and in general she has a bit of a lack of a defense. She has relatively well worked head movement. I feel like possibly at times the head movement can be better than that of Price's, but the actual lack of a defense a lot of the time is the case. She can have messy working close, she can lunge in with her jab and just stay there a bit too long, and she does duck her head down quite often at times as well. Price is the favourite for this fight, and I think that Price will win via unanimous decision. I could see her being able to outbox her and Mccaskill becoming frustrated into the later rounds, but then just not really being able to have too much of an answer. I feel like it's going to be intriguing to see how Price deals with the pressure in which Mccaskill will put on at times, and if things aren't going Mccaskill's way, I'm sure Mccaskill will try and force the fight a bit, and it'll be intriguing to see how Price manages to deal and manoeuvre with that. But I still believe she'll be able to win comfortably via unanimous decision. Then who she could go on to fight? I feel like the welterweight division, especially domestic level wise, is really flying at the moment. I mean, Jonas, Harper, Wright, Ryan. I don't necessarily know what's going on with Harper at the moment, coming off the quite bad loss, but with Jonas and Ryan, two British champions, plus now Price if she goes on to win. That's three British world champions in the welterweight division. Obviously, Boxer isn't really got the best of names to be working with Matchroom. They just don't really want to be doing that at the moment, so the Ryan one possibly won't happen next, which is a shame. But the Jonas one, that could happen. Jonas might be rematching Mayer though next, so that might not end up happening. And so when you look around, I mean, Habazin has just become WBC and WBA interim world champion, so that could be definitely a fight which can be made. And I'm sure they will be wanting, and Mccaskill will probably be wanting a defence before they go straight into another world title fight. But yeah, that is it for today's video. I hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you did indeed like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.